The Yukon women dominate on the road at Butler in front of a sold-out crowd at the iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the Yukon Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I just wanted to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all of your support. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the Yukon men's and women's basketball program, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to Yukon games. All right. Let's welcome to the program Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World, Substack, and, of course, a contributor here to Locked On UConn as well. All right, Bella, appreciate you. Hope you had a great weekend. UConn routs Butler on the road, finished a perfect 3-game road trip with now a 5th straight win by over 25 points. That's including the South Carolina win. Geno's comments essentially after the game were, we're as connected on defense as we have been all year, and our offense flows off of that. What do you think clicked during this stretch? I know there's been some chatter about, like they haven't come out the same against some teams like after the South Carolina game, but they still have kind of put this defensive masterclass together in this stretch run of 5 straight wins at 25 points.
Yeah, I think that they recognized against Tennessee that things needed to change. It was a huge wake-up call. And like you said, since then, it's just been pure dominance. I think they realized that South Carolina, super athletic. They have to fly around. They have to close out on shooters. And I just feel like that when you beat a top team in the country, it rubs off, gives you kind of a newfound confidence. And it's just kind of rolled into, playing against Butler, and hopefully it rolls into this week, which I believe they have Creighton coming up on tomorrow, Thursday. So I think that when you beat the best, you sometimes turn into the best, and I think that's what UConn's maybe starting to figure out about themselves.
Yeah, I think you have to be crazy to think otherwise, right? I think it's been an interesting run, so to speak. What did you think of Caroline Ducharme returning just for a few minutes over the weekend?
I think again, that is always going to be, Caroline coming back. I feel like she has always held an on-court presence of kind of like even off-court presence, kind of like that maternal figure. And I think her getting back to full health is that last piece of the puzzle for UConn. It's been an injury-plagued season, but having Caroline come back, you're already confident, and now you add another really good defender, a pretty solid presence, especially beyond the arc for 3-point shooting. Adding her, I think, shows UConn, okay, like, yes, we've had our struggles. Yes, especially early on in the season, we really couldn't win any big games. But we're finally our full strength and finally have an opportunity to really go into the tournament with, I would argue at this point, one of the best rosters and most complete rosters when they play basketball in all of women's basketball.
All right, so it's not all good news. Obviously UConn has been playing well, but Morgan Cheli had a season-ending ankle surgery. How much does her loss impact this team's depth? Because she was starting to carve like a nice niche for herself, if anything, just to kind of get some minutes and give players like AZ, Paige, even Sarah, kind of a little of a blow here and there.
Yeah, I think Cheli's impact was definitely starting to become a little bit undeniable with just her, like you said, her abilities to give some players some blows when they needed it. I think that one thing I feel about Yukon is they've always had that next man up mentality, no matter what it's been. And I think this year, luckily for them, because of so many injuries, they've everybody I feel like on their bench, obviously with the exception of Allie and Cadence, have had to play certain roles that they're not familiar with. So I think that they're ready. They're going to figure something out. Geno has had to play around with the lineup plenty of times this season, and I think this is no different. I think they'll be able to figure out, okay, who's it going to be to take some, stress off Paige if she's not hitting or just needs a break. It's same thing with AZ. I think with the return of somebody like Aubrey Griffin, I think she's gonna just kind of be a utility player, kind of like in baseball. I think they're gonna be like, okay, like if we need somebody to go out there and give us some really good defensive minutes, we got Aubrey. If we need somebody to run the floor and help us in the fast break, we also have Aubrey. That's kind of our X factor. Really, in my opinion, is Aubrey Griffin because she can really play almost anywhere.
Yeah,
and have a good impact.
Do you think anyone else kind of? I know the rotations are kind of set already. Obviously, they're towards the end of the year here, but do you think anyone else gets some more burn? Do you think maybe Ali Zabel gets some burn or even Q a little bit just to kind of supplant Morgan? Or is that what the plan is for Caroline Ducharme? Do you think?
I would argue that it's. I think that could be Caroline's kind of more role, just because we've talked about it plenty of times before. There's something, I don't know if it's internal. I don't know if it's just something that Geno, mentally doesn't trust them. But even in games where it's been kind of blowout opportunities, Cadence and Allie just haven't been getting minutes that you'd think they'd be getting. So I honestly feel like it's going to be Ducharme's Ducharme's role, and I don't know. I honestly don't know if I see Q especially. I don't know if I see her sticking with Yukon beyond this season. And I think Allie, I think Geno had his opportunity to give Allie opportunities when she needed it to, and I think he might be kind of shooting himself in the foot, thinking, you know what, if I had split Morgan and Allie's minutes up a little bit more, would have been prepared for a moment like this. But I do think that based off of what we've seen in blowout games, he hasn't been getting the minutes that I think make me think that she's going to fill the shoes of Morgan, unfortunately. If that makes any sense, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think also too, like, it's not really it's not as big a deal as it's just something that is unfortunate because Morgan is a top flight recruit. I think she was the 4th recruit or 7th recruit in the country. I always get her and Allie mixed up on their rankings coming into this season. So it's not like she's like a 3-star that like no one should care about and we should still care about them. They're just not going to help us play games. But like my point is like it's just one of those things where it sucks. It sucks more for Morgan than it does for the team because she was starting to kind of get better and she started to kind of get a little more trust from the coaching staff. It's just harder. It's just going to be harder for her next year. Not to take listen, this year is not even close to being over, but when you look ahead to next year, with the class that's coming in, she'll have a leg up from an experience standpoint, but to have to kind of rehab an ankle injury is never fun. Any type of injury where it's season ending. So that's what I'm talking about more. So I don't really think it's going to impact the team per se this year, but it sucks from like a roster building perspective.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. I mean, out of everybody on the team, and this is no disrespect to Morgan, but out of every player that played significant minutes this year, she's kind of the one where I'm like, okay, and again, this is, I don't want to.
No, I know what you mean. You don't even have Bella.
Yeah.
Honestly, you don't even have to say it. Like,
with it.
I think what you're trying to just say is if you had to pick someone that could be out for the year, it would be Morgan, and it sucks. Like, and we don't wish her any ill will.
Not at all.
So like that's that. But and I also feel like too, if an injury happens, you'd rather it be to one of the younger players than the older ones, because if it happens to like Caroline or an Aubrey, they're done. Like they're not playing anymore. So I totally understand what you mean. So don't sweat it. All right. So real quick, take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about, I've been excited about Kaitlyn Chen's impact lately. Obviously, Paige has made some really big strides, almost as like a pseudo, I want to call her a point guard yet, but like almost like a 1A point guard where she's been dialing up some more assists and on a good pace. And we're going to talk about all of that coming up after the break. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you can pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps you in every game, and it keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and for LeBron James for more than 8 rebounds in his most recent game. I love how you can make any picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. When I win, my money hits my account in less than 15 minutes. No waiting around. PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. All you have to do is download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World and me, of course, the host, Mark Zanetto of Locked On UConn. Bella's with us 2 times a week. She also writes for Hoops Capital of the World. She wrote a great story about the Banana Boys and her time doing that at Gamble. You should go check that out, amongst other great articles on there, not only just from her, but from other contributors to the Substack Hoops Capital of the World. All right, so Paige has kind of it's been kind of an evolution for her this year. She's gone from, I know Geno wants her to be more aggressive, but I think for me, what that means is aggression while also still looking to set up her teammates. Because I know Geno, I don't know him personally, but you have to understand that he is the type of coach that doesn't want you to take bad shots. Simple as that. So, and I think a bad shot from Paige is still better than kind of maybe an open shot for some people, but it's all within reason. Paige is also, seems to me, to be the type that is, she's never going to change who she is. And that is, it's been ingrained in her to play basketball the right way. And what that means for me is when you're doing things for yourself, when you penetrate and someone comes to you, they're likely leaving their man. So that leaves someone open for either open shots, threes, people penetrate, or people cut to the basket. So for me, what I want people to understand, I think, and I think this is what's so interesting about her evolution as a point guard, is I think this is what she's been meant to do for a long time, which is be that facilitator, be a person that can still get 20, 25 points for herself, no problem, but do it in a way that isn't taking 20 to 25 shots. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think Paige kind of finding this role, I mean, in the last, I would say, about 7-8 game stretch, is why they've been just purely dominant. I mean, it's been, I think that's a perfect way to put it. I think when Paige is at her best and when the team's at their best is just her not having to take the reins and be the number one scorer. And if she is great, I mean, she was yesterday. I believe she had 23, and Sarah was second highest scorer. But I do think that when she can find other players and she does a great job at creating shots for herself, but an even better job at creating shots for other players. And I think that, like you said, I couldn't agree more. I think Paige having the offense facilitate through her is when UConn is at their best. And I also think that, again, I mean, when UConn has a few scorers that score double digits, yesterday they had 5 double-digit scorers. I believe it was Ashlyn, Shade, Sarah, Kaitlyn, Paige, and AZ. That's when they play their best basketball. So I think for a lot of other teams in the country, you see somebody like, Juju Watkins. She'll put up 25 a night, 30 a night. And, I just feel like that's just not the team that UConn has.
No.
I don't think they've ever had that kind of team, really.
Well,
And that
I don't mean to cut you up, but let's look at there was an upset over the weekend, right? NC State beats
Yep.
Notre Dame in double
Insane.
overtime, right?
Insane.
Look, I bring it up to not make fun of Notre Dame because NC State played great, but just if you look at the box score of Notre Dame, who beat UConn, didn't have this type of stats against UConn, but Hannah Hidalgo is a great example. She played 46 minutes. How many points do you think she had? Just throw it out there. I don't even know if you looked.
I didn't check it out off the top
Double
of my
overtime,
head.
remember?
What was that?
It was double overtime, so it's probably more than normal. So
Right.
how many points did she have?
So I want to say 25.
Okay, 26. You're close. She had 26 points. How many shots did she take?
I want to say double overtime, maybe 30. I don't know if
26 shots.
26 shots, yeah.
26 points on 26 shots. That is not efficient basketball.
Not at all.
And it's just not who Paige is. Same thing. Olivia Miles is another one right here. And she had a better game in terms of percentage than this is what I want. This is what, for all I know, we're going off script here, but this is what I would want Easy Fudd. This is what Easy Fudd's line should be. And I think she shoots a better percentage than Olivia Miles. Olivia Miles was 9 of 23 from the floor. She was 4 of 13 from 3, and she had 22 points. She also had 9 rebounds and 2 assists. So it's not – I don't want Paige to have those numbers. I want Paige to have the Sonia Citron numbers, which were 11 of 18, 7 rebounds. She had 23 points, and she also had 3 assists. And hopefully Paige would have more assists. But the idea of Paige turning herself now or at all this season into – the Caitlin Clarks or a Hannah Hidalgo or a Juju Watkins who's going to take 25, 30 shots to kind of will her team to victory, it's never going to be that way. And it kind of reminds me of the old kind of adage of LeBron versus Jordan or LeBron versus Kobe. Like the Kobe's of the world are going to take 30 shots. I mean, what was the game he scored 60 points when he was before his last year? I think he took 51 shots. Like,
for sure.
Awesome. And it was a great show and it was awesome, but that's never going to be Paige. And LeBron is a perfect example of how she plays. Not as much of the flopping, and people will make fun of me for that, but it's one of those things where she literally goes to the hole and she'll make her little her kind of patented mid-range shot. But if they stop her, she kicks it out for open threes, or she drops it off to Paige for Sarah for open layups. Like, this is Paige's game. It always has been. And trying to change her, I think, is kind of silly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the one thing I feel about Paige is, same thing is when I look at her, a lot of times you look at athletes and you think, if an athlete has a bad game, Hannah Hidalgo, just to break it down like this, I'm just going to say it. Hannah Hidalgo to me is somebody that if she has a good game but her team loses, she's still like, oh, I played well. Or if she has a bad game and her team wins, she's kind of more perseverating on the fact that she didn't play well. That's like just not what Paige Bueckers is. And again, I'm speculating a little bit with Hidalgo, but there's a lot of players that just it's about them. And that's not Paige. And that's not UConn. Like I said, UConn is team basketball. They've always have been. Yes, they've had, a lot of times, the best player in the country and, in Brianna Stewart and in, whoever it may have been, right? But when it came down to it, it was, we're going to come out and we're going to win as a team. We're going to play team basketball. And I just don't think that a player that's going to shoot just become a chucker. That's just not a UConn athlete, in my opinion. And I think that's fine. I'm glad we have a player like Paige who is very team first and doesn't care about, her stats at the end of the day. It's just about, did we win? Did we lose?
I totally agree. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the other half of that segment, which we kind of didn't really get into, which is Kaitlyn Chen emerging as an X factor. But also in the third segment, we're going to talk about is UConn kind of putting out the best defense in the country. I think the answer might be yes. We're going to talk about that coming up after the break. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And we're back on Locked On UConn with your host here, Mark Zanetto of Locked On UConn, and of course, Bella Tamano, Hoops Capital of the World, as well as being a two-time-a-week host here on Locked On UConn. Appreciate her as always. All right, Kaitlyn Chen. Geno had a comment. He said she's always been a tough player. She's smart, and she's figuring out her role at the perfect time. How do you think Kaitlyn's is emerging as this legitimate X factor, and what has changed in her game over the last few weeks?
For me, I think it's Caitlin Clark's confidence has changed really. Caitlin Clark.
Kaitlyn Chen.
Kaitlyn Chen. Kaitlyn Chen. Caitlin Chen's confidence has changed, in my opinion. I think that she hasn't been afraid to take shots, and the biggest thing for her is in that scoring category. She hasn't been afraid to take shots, and I feel like her shots are primarily falling. I think that especially in that South Carolina game, I want to say she had 7 or 10 points. It was a crazy stat line. But she did exactly what was expected of her. And I think in the beginning, she had to play the role of kind of running that offense through her. Now with Paige stepping into that kind of point guard role, I think Kaitlyn's been able to just find her shot. And again, I just think she's just striking at the right moments and coming up with big shots, big scores in big moments. And I think that's really it for her. I just think that confidence has been a huge factor, and that's half the battle. If you're confident and if you say, okay, my shot's gonna fall, even if it doesn't, you gotta realize, okay, I'm still gonna take the next one. It's not gonna just missing a shot or throwing a bad pass. It doesn't mean that that's the end of your night, right? You just gotta
Yeah.
go out there. And I think Chen has been all right. I'm just gonna get the next one. I'm just gonna get the next one. It doesn't mean that if one doesn't fall, the next one's gonna fall. And I think that's the best mentality to have. And I think that um, that's what's been kind of swirling through her mind, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think also too, like I think that just leads into why they brought her in. She's got leadership qualities that they wanted, and having played big time games at Princeton, winning some Ivy League championships there, having big games in big moments, albeit at a smaller level, and sometimes that doesn't translate to kind of the big league, so to speak, right? But in this case, it's starting to. Like I thought earlier in the year when I did an entire show on Kaitlyn's transfer that she could have been a bigger part, but she also was coming into a team that had some pretty established stars, right? You had someone like Paige, AZ's coming back. It's Yukon, Geno's a star in himself. So it's like, whose toes do you step on? And I think she's starting to realize that she doesn't have to kind of fit in, that she can lead. And I think it's a big part of why they've started to beat some teams that we thought they couldn't. And that leads me into the next comment, which is the defensive side of things. They've held top 10 teams now, South Carolina and North Carolina. Maybe it's just something about the Carolinas, under 60 points. And I think that proves to me that they can defend against this elite competition, especially the South Carolina win. Do you think that's true?
I mean, for sure. I think we, at least I have underestimated UConn's athleticism this year.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that came from, we just weren't all there health wise. But now adding depth, AZ finally being back to her fullest potential. Aubrey coming back, who's, as good of a defender as anybody. Getting everybody like that healthy has now given us, that depth that we need to. All right, like let's get Aubrey in there to fly around on defense and cause some havoc. And I think that has rubbed off on everybody. I think Aubrey's athleticism. I think AZ being healthy. I think just the overall health of the team has given them depth to allow them to fly around on defense. And I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like right now defensively, it's a scary sight for any opposing offense. I think that we're not the tallest team in the country. We're not gonna, tower over you, but they've been just flying around, and yeah, I just think that their athleticism is sneaky, and I think that's been a huge part of their success.
Without a doubt. Last comment before we move on for the day. You got 2 regular season games, then the Big East tournament. What do you think? And with Notre Dame's loss, like we talked about this, where do you think they end up? I honestly think the 1 seed is looking a lot stronger every day.
So I agree with you. I think we talked about it. A couple of upsets needed to happen as we close out this season, and they are. And now the other thing to look at is for this is we at this point it's out of our control, right? We're gonna run the table, but looking at the final, the top seeds, the one matchup that really comes to mind for UConn's path to number 1 seed is this. Okay, UCLA and USC play each other this weekend. USC already beat them once. If USC wins again, USC will also play them probably in the Big Ten tournament.
Maybe, yep.
And if USC wins again, that'll be 3 losses to USC for UCLA on the season.
Right.
Could that be enough to knock UCLA out and put UConn in?
Of course. I think I know that these like high profile games don't hurt as much, but when you lose and then you're staring at UConn, who's a perennial national title contender, and UCLA has not won national titles. They've had a great year. If they start to fizzle late, then I mean, there's not a huge difference between a 1 and a 2 seed, but I could easily see that happening. But even if you can look at it from the other perspective, if UCLA wins the next 2 games against USC, then USC is going to be a 2 seed.
True. And
because right now they're in kind of prime position to control their own destiny in that respect, to be that 3rd or 4th 1 seed. South Carolina still has work to do to secure a 1 seed. I think it's going to be interesting. This is where, for all the the railing against the Big East all year, this is where it actually kind of helps UConn down the stretch, having beaten South Carolina as badly as they did, to then now run the table in impressive fashion and just kind of be sitting there at the end like, hey guys, remember me? 11-time national champion. I go to the Final Four every year. Just put us in as a 1 seed somewhere, and we'll see you in Tampa. So I think it's the good and bad, right? Of being in a conference that isn't as good, right? All right. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I really appreciate Bella jumping on, as always. We're excited about the end of the year and potentially following this team all the way to the Final Four. Remember, stay connected with us. Go to all of our social medias at Locked On UConn on X, on TikTok, on Facebook. What am I missing? On Instagram. Stay with us the whole way. Hey, it's not about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that can't be done any better. That's our show today. Bella, good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Go Huskies.